God bless you. Good morning. Get woke and vote. Joining us now, the president CEO of the oldest and boldest, the most discussed civil rights organization we have in America, the NAACP. Of course, Kavanaugh is number one on the agenda. Derrick, good morning to you, man.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you for having me on again.
All right, as always, brother, we always will too. Folks, join us as we stream on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Make it plain, and on Instagram, Minister with two T's. Um, so, Derrick, where are we this morning? I think that the Republicans are trying to hold a Judiciary Committee vote as early as Thursday, right?
Well, there will be another hearing. The Democrats, from my understanding, is requesting information which would delay it another week from Thursday. But this is a serious matter. We have a judicial nominee who's misrepresented on more than one occasion. His position through his testimony, when you compare his 2006 testimony with today. Now, in the hood where I grew up, misrepresented me, he lied.
Mm.
And so we need to take a real serious look at that. For Republicans, they are playing the game of by any means necessary at all costs. They're going to ram this nominee down the throat of the American public. We are looking closely. This is going to come down to one or two votes. We hope that there are some reasoned Republicans who can say this is wrong, but we're also looking very closely at Democrats to make sure we don't have anybody to flip over. Because it is unconscionable for a judicial nominee for the highest court in the land to go before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and 90% of his record has not been provided to the committee so they can vet it, compare, and make a clear decision. They cannot do their job. So with NAACP, we opposed his nomination in 2006 for just the basic reasons surrounding his opposition to civil rights principles we hold valuable. Today we oppose his nomination not only for those things, but he lied before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and that shouldn't be acceptable.
And that primarily we're talking about the dishonesty that he displayed in saying he had no access to stolen Democratic Senate emails.
It's the Senate emails. It's statements he made related to judicial nominees when he worked as White House counsel with both Fryer and Charles Pickering. We don't know what else is in there that shows inconsistent statements between what he said now compared to his his position as White House counsel, and compares to his testimony when he came before this committee in 2006. We don't know the extent of the misrepresentation from this judicial nominee, and for that reason alone, this confirmation should not go forward. Never in history have we seen such a mockery of a process to appoint someone to a lifetime position on the highest court in the land.
And
It's a sham.
and it seems though that I think the Democrats did well in terms of exposing his dishonesty and all of the issues. The bottom line is, if we count votes, we need Murkowski and Collins. Is there any information, any intelligence you have, Derrick, that would suggest they're leaning toward voting no?
Well, I'm not suggesting we just need them. We need all senators to own their responsibility and just say that how can you do your job as a member of the U.S. Senate if the record has not been provided to you? They labeled parts of his record as committee confidential that had nothing to do with national security, had nothing to do with privilege, attorney-client privilege, but everything to do with his position on policy issues that's, one, unpopular, and two, inconsistent with prior statements during his testimony. And so you cannot have a true process where members of the U.S. Senate can carry out their duty of advising consent.
Yeah.
So they have not been provided the record. So whether it's Murkowski or Collins or Manchin, Republican or Democrat, male or female, this nominee should not move forward because the process is a sham process.
And obviously, too, the consequences of having Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court for his lifetime, the consequences would be devastating to civil and human rights, women's rights, voting rights, everything.
Years.
Yeah.
Yes, for the next 30, 40 years, this would be an individual who will preside on the highest court of the land and can determine how the Constitution should be interpreted as relates to some of the most fundamental questions impacting us as citizens. Mm-hmm. Brown versus Board of Education can be reconsidered in ways in which we wouldn't recognize the right of children to be provided quality education. The concept of equal protection under the law could be contorted in ways in which there's no equity in the application of law, and we have a whole new classification of equity, and it wouldn't have anything to do with individual citizens. It would be corporations. I mean, everything is at stake.
Yeah. Obviously, people should contact their senators, right, Derrick?
Absolutely. You can contact your senators, particularly those of you who come from states where your senators have not made a clear position of support opposition, that this is not acceptable. We should not, as a nation, be held captive to an individual sitting in the White House who is an unindicted co-conspirator with a foreign nation to influence our election, and then be able to appoint somebody to serve on the Supreme Court for a lifetime. Mm-hmm. This is a sham process.
Yeah, it most certainly is. I think the momentum against him, it just seems to me, is picking up some steam, Derrick. I hope I'm right about that.
I hope we're both right about that. I'm seeing more. What's frustrating is when I look at the media. The media like to play tennis. They'll say they said this, then they said that, then they said this, and they draw no conclusion or real analysis around what's being said or what's at stake, or what the issue truly is. Mm-hmm. Because when that happens, it's ping pong as opposed to covering news and providing facts. It is factual that his record has been covered up. It is factual that this process has been mishandled and never handled in this way in the history of judicial nominees. It is factual that he has made inconsistent statements. It is factual that 90% of his record has not been released. And yet many news outlets, be them considered conservative or progressive or somewhere in between, we continue to be fed watered-down tennis match. They said this, and then they said that. We need more substantive information so people can be better informed. And slowly, I'm seeing some of that bubble up, and slowly I'm watching the momentum and support of Kavanaugh. The longer his record is under this spotlight, the more people begin to recognize that this is a problem.
Yeah.
And he is a problem.
Yeah, very well put. Folks, contact your member of the Senate. Let them know that you are opposed to Brett Kavanaugh. He's avoided many questions. All of the senators, particularly those senators in the Black Caucus, have been making some very compelling arguments when it comes to this nominee.
I commend Kamala Harris. She set the tone when when the hearing started. I commend Cory Booker. He jumped right in and he put the pedal to the metal. I commend Senator Blumenthal, who came right behind them to raise the question. I commend the senator from Alaska, who was outstanding and pressing him on the question of issues dealing with Hawaiian natives. They created an atmosphere to open up the door to raise the necessary questions around this process, this nominee. Too many members of the Senate try to play the old game.
Yeah.
And it's like bringing a butter knife to a gun show. You're going to get shot down every time.
Follow Derrick on Twitter at Derrick NAACP. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back. This is MIP.